Joining us right now to talk about this and put it all in perspective through nonverbal cues is the former Speaker of the House, best-selling author of his brand new New York Times best-selling book, Understanding Trump, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, what's the significance of the French president trying to be near our president?
Well, you know, Macron has gone out of the way to invite President Trump to come to Paris for their biggest annual holiday, Bastille Day, next week. President Trump has agreed to come. In some ways, I think Macron identifies with Trump. This would probably surprise most Americans. Macron is a very, very bright, business-oriented technocrat. He came out of nowhere, much like Trump. He actually built his own legislative party and won a massive election for the Assembly. So he's probably the strongest president of France in modern times. And I think he admires Trump. Plus, I think he wants to balance off Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany. No French president wants to be in the shadow of a German chancellor. And if he can be balanced between Trump and Merkel, he maximizes his own leverage. He's a very smart man and well worth watching.
Well, maybe he was supposed to be far screen left. We don't know for sure. And he was out of position in the beginning. Nonetheless, that's gone.
But think about it. He's like Trump. You say to him, stand right there. He goes, sure. And then he walks off and does what he wants to.
Hey, I'm French.
I don't think he's very easily managed.
He's going to be meeting with Vladimir Putin today. I don't know if you gave him any advice, did you? And if you didn't, what would you say to him? We can show the first video of them shaking hands behind the scenes. This was on the German Facebook page. They're shaking hands there. Look, he pats him on the back. He kind of pats his arm as he's shaking his hand. What advice do you have for him going into that meeting today? Anytime
you have leaders of this power meeting for the first time, the most important thing is not the agenda, it's how they assess each other. In 1961, when Kennedy met Khrushchev in Vienna, Kennedy wasn't feeling very well, and Khrushchev concluded that he was weak, which led to the adventurism that ultimately had a Cuban Missile Crisis. When Reagan met Gorbachev for the first time, Reagan went out of his way to look younger, better condition. There's this great scene of Reagan without a coat on coming down in the Swiss winter while Gorbachev gets out of this huge Russian coat. And Gorbachev looks like the old guy. Reagan looks like the young guy. All that was staged in Reagan's mind to get one thing across. I'm really strong, and in the end, you're going to lose. I think what Trump has to communicate is very simple. We're the most powerful nation in the world. We have the most powerful military in the world. We have the biggest economy in the world. We're fed up with Putin jerking us around. And he'd like to have a good relationship, but it ain't going to come with these kind of gangster tactics.
Do you believe it's true that the president does not have a set agenda, or do you believe that he just, H.R. McMaster said, we go in there without an agenda? What do you think the truth is?
Well, George Shultz had the same deal with Ronald Reagan, who met with Gorbachev one-on-one, and they're very similar. Look, Donald Trump has an agenda the minute he wakes up every morning. Donald Trump's not going to walk in this meeting and go, oh, gee, now I'm here with Vladimir Putin. I wonder what I will do. He has been thinking about this meeting for almost a year. He has a good sense of what he wants to accomplish. I think he's going to turn most of the details over to Secretary Tillerson, but I think in terms of shaping the meeting, the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal understands what he wants to communicate, and I think he has a psychological agenda, whether or not he has a detailed policy agenda.
Sure. Mr. Speaker, in your detailed story about Swiss winners in outerwear, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. A lot of people looked at the speech yesterday in Poland and said, you know what, that reminds me of Ronald Reagan. Did you have that feeling?
Well, first of all, it's I think, as powerful as Reagan's Westminster speech. Callista and I watched the speech with great attention because we'd filmed 9 Days That Changed the World about Pope John Paul going back to Poland, and had that scene that the president described so powerfully where a million Poles began chanting, we want God, and the communist minders watching them realized the beginning of the end had started. Poland, in that sense, was the epicenter of the end of the Soviet Empire. Reagan understood it and was strongly supportive of the Pope. I thought the speech was historic yesterday. I think, in fact, that the administration ought to bring it up again and again. Here's an American president defending Western civilization by name, defending it both against Islamic terrorism and against the kind of secular bureaucratic tyranny that wants to kill the young baby Charlie Gard in Great Britain because the state has decided he's not worth living. And I think that what Trump did yesterday was center our fight for the survival of our civilization as well as any president in history. It's a remarkably important speech.
Along with reconfirming the Rule 5 will stick up for everybody at any time if you're in NATO. as well as taking on the Russians directly. So that's he hit a lot of buttons.
But by the way, notice what he did. He set a line for Putin and he set a line for Merkel. In that one speech, he positioned the U.S. with Poland and Central Europe, gave a warning to the Germans and the West, gave a warning to Putin and Russia, and did so in the name of the civilization which encompasses all of us. Pretty remarkable achievement.
Mr. Speaker, we were looking just a moment ago at Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin, the President's cabinet money guys. The fact that they are, at this particular venue, the faces that we see, what does that say to you about what the United States is trying to get out of this meeting?
Trump has a continuing focus on job creation. He believes most of the trade treaties of the last generation have been hostile to American interest. He has assigned both those guys to focus on how do we get our trade relations back in the right way, which doesn't, by the way, necessarily mean that we're anti-trade. It just means we want the same right to export to others that they have to export to us, and we're tired of being played for suckers. But I think you're going to find everywhere Trump goes, he talks about and thinks about economics. He knows that job creation is the key to his administration's success, and he is really focused on doing the things necessary to create jobs, and that's why you have Mnuchin and Cohen there.
Reporters this morning were writing in their articles about this Russian meeting with Vladimir Putin. They weren't sure if the president or if Vladimir Putin would come out and talk to the press after the meeting. Do you think that we'll hear from President Trump?
Well, at least through a series of tweets, but I suspect at some point he'll talk to the press.
I think so too.
Whether or not they do it together, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating to see. These are both strong personalities. They're both people who are willing to attempt to dominate a space. They have very deep differences, and nobody should kid themselves about this. And where I do give President Trump credit, he understands that Russia is dangerous. They have more nuclear weapons than any country but the United States. They have a doctrine of using tactical nuclear weapons, and I think that you have to deal with them very carefully. You want to be tough, you want to be firm, but you want to avoid getting to a point where there's a real shooting war.
Absolutely. There's a lot at stake. We look forward to seeing the aftermath of this because so many people are looking at it. Congratulations on your book, Mr. Speaker. You've always had successful books,
Thanks.
But this one's going through the roof. Understanding Trump because you think you do. Newt Gingrich, thanks so much.
Well, I try.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have a great weekend.